Have you ever considered that the way businesses market to you can either empower and uplift or unintentionally trigger discomfort and stress? Today, we're delving into the world of strength based and trauma informed marketing with my guest, a pioneer in this transformative approach. Stay tuned to discover why it matters, not just for brands, but to all of us as consumers seeking more meaningful and empathetic connections with services that we encounter every single day. Welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Jen Vasquez. Using my proven Pinterest marketing method, I help hyper busy female service providers create one marketing workflow to book more clients, increase their income and their impact in about an hour a week. And I love, love, love hosting expert interviews like this one for any type of marketing in general. So if marketing is something that you're wanting to learn more about for your business, subscribe to our podcast or YouTube channel. Today, I'm so excited to be chatting with Kat Kennan of Radical Customer Experience. Kat Kennan is the founder and CEO of Radical Customer Experience, a groundbreaking consulting firm that encourages brands to establish genuine connections with their customers by embracing strength-based, trauma-informed, and inclusive marketing services. With passion for empowering individuals and driving positive change, her mission truly is to help brands speak up, speak out, and foster diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in their customer interactions. I mean, that sounds amazing. Welcome, Kat. How are you?
I'm great. Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I'm very excited to have you here. I feel like this is a missing piece in the number of podcast and YouTube interviews that we have. And I'm always about making sure we're checking in on how we're speaking to our ideal client or our potential ideal client. So, but let's start at the very beginning. I love finding out the sort of windy road that you take to get to where you are today. So go ahead and let us know sort of what jobs came before this business and what inspired you to be doing this business today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I've been a marketing leader, marketing executive for about 20 years. But how did I get to marketing? When I first moved to New York City and started my career, I had the privilege of being at brands like Estee Lauder Corporate, Condé Nast, and it really introduced me to the idea of brand marketing before I was even in that role. And looking back, it was so formative to the marketer I then became. Since I made that transition, like I said, about 20 years ago, I have been building and rebuilding marketing organizations for brands of all shapes, sizes, industry sectors, for-profit, nonprofit, startup, you name it. And yeah, so that's the marketing piece. And then a huge part of my story that I talk about very publicly is the fact that I have complex PTSD. So I've experienced a number of traumatic events in my life. It technically makes me neurodivergent. My brain works a little bit differently, which is awesome. It's awesome to be different. But a number of years ago, I realized that I was perceiving marketing messages very differently when I was really in the throes of the PTSD. And so I knew I was onto something. I knew it was in the lens of customer experience. Wasn't quite sure what it was yet. And I formed my business and sort of like thought about it in the background. During the pandemic, two things happened. One, I accidentally got a full-time job. And
That's usually the reverse for most people in the pandemic.
yeah, I know. And two, I went back and I got a certification in being a trauma-informed professional. So now I've taken all of my marketing experience, my own experiences with trauma, as well as the latest research, what's happening in your body, and brought them all together to form my business, the model that I've based it on, how I consult with my clients, and a product that I put together.
So let's dive in a little deeper for those that don't understand. Start by explaining what strength based and trauma informed marketing means and why it's really important to consider in today's business landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that strength based marketing definitely fits under the larger umbrella of trauma informed marketing. But, I'm sure most people like tuning in, we've all been marketers, whether on the consulting side or brand side. And what were we taught? We were taught fear based marketing. We were taught to create urgency in order to increase those sales, meet the quotas we were supposed to, meet our sales targets, all of those things. But there's a different way to do it. So, fear based tactics certainly work. They work in the short term, but I think what most companies are looking for is long term sustainable growth. And so instead of, say, limited quantities, take that same data and just flip it on its head. And instead, you can send out content that says, like, hey, here are our customer favorites. Maybe you'd like one too. Or, here are our top selling items this month. It's literally using the exact same data, but just flipping on how it's positioned. And, words matter. Absolutely.
And how has your sort of personal journey and experiences influenced your approach to trauma informed marketing? And like, how does this perspective benefit both your clients and also their customers?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, again, as a marketer, or many of us are in a unique position of being both consumers and on the marketing side. So I know that I've had a number of interactions over the years where, I got unintentionally triggered, and you know, it could be that pressure that comes from fear-based marketing. We are in the middle of an increasing mental health crisis, particularly with young kids, since the pandemic. They're on social media sooner. They're bombarded with all of this advertising and influencers. And, it can be very, very triggering. It's like peer pressure to the extreme, and on the trauma informed side, I've had things happen to me personally where, 5, 6 years ago, well, I guess it's good I'm forgetting how long exactly it's been, but my ex-husband and I separated, and I remember going to the mailbox one day and getting a piece of mail from him, or for him rather, and he'd never lived in this apartment. And so it was so, so triggering. And it's like, it's so simple. And it's probably the least sexy part of marketing, which is data hygiene, right? But if you're cleaning your database, you can prevent things like that happening. I know my lovely, amazing neighbor that is across the hall from me, unfortunately, her husband passed last year. And every single day when I walk in my building, I see packages and mail that is still addressed to him. And, that's hard. So many of us have lost people, especially considering the pandemic. And so there are just
And especially when my dad passed away suddenly, 7 years ago. And my mom literally called every single bill location to let them know. And she was still getting mail. Like it is not hard if somebody takes the time to call to remove that. Like it's the last thing companies think about, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of it, I witnessed that with like my mom passing away. She died as COVID was beginning. And, both from my seat in it and my dad's, like, there's obviously a lot of privacy protection built in, as there should be with customer service and account management. But, I listened and sometimes got in on those same phone calls where he was like, hey, she's literally not here anymore. We need to change the name to my account, and being refused because, there was like no one to give like the code or permission. And it was was mind-boggling to me because, there has to be a way to sort of get around those permissions when needed, right?
Can you
Uh,
think of any other sort of real world examples of brands that successfully implemented strength-based and trauma-informed marketing and like how that had a positive impact on a customer relationship, whether it was yours or one of your clients?
yeah, absolutely. I think we both hit on it in talking about our parents.
Yes.
So the first time I saw a campaign like this was a company called Uncommon Goods about 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And I believe it was before the first Mother's Day without me. And, so of course, like you're bombarded with all these Mother's Day messagings, like every email, every social post, every commercial. And I get this text message from Uncommon Goods that said, "Hey, we know this time of year is tough for many of you. Click here to opt out of our Mother's Day message." And, immediately I was like, they see me, they absolutely see me. I felt so validated. And, as a marketer, like look at it cut and dry, like they're just segmenting their customers, right? Like doesn't have to be hard, doesn't have to be complicated. But while they're segmenting, they're able to create this customer experience that just is not possible otherwise. And, since I saw that first campaign, they certainly did it like in following years. Now Etsy's done something like that. Ancestry did it this year. So I think these brands are slowly adopting things like this. I don't think they're necessarily using the term trauma informed marketing, but yeah, absolutely.
It's the little details. I know I'll see and the brands that do this are the brands that I go to give my business to, right? But they'll say things like, because so many people maybe grew up without a dad or without a mom. And so I love when they say things like, Happy Mother's Day, even if you're a father helping, that role of mom or whatever it is. Like, I feel like just being a little bit more thoughtful in our words or to consider all the possibilities. And it's just minor tweaks. You're not having to redo an entire sort of marketing campaign. You're just tweaking how it's presented.
Yeah, absolutely. Go back to that first, text message campaign I got. It probably took their marketing manager or, whoever's handling their mobile marketing, maybe an hour of their time to think about it. Like, it is not hard. It doesn't have to be hard, but it makes such a meaningful difference. As marketers, we talk about brand loyalty and customer loyalty, and, they're almost a little bit of throwaway terms because there's nothing marketers like more than than buzzwords. But the loyalty that is actually genuinely created by these kinds of tactics and strategies, like this is what you always see me like pressing on my solar plexus because it lives underneath, right? Now, was I a customer of Uncommon Goods before? Yes. Did I always love them? Yes. But once I had that interaction as a customer, now they are the place, right? Will I ever unsubscribe? No. Now, it doesn't matter how many months between purchases, right? I will always be a customer of theirs. I'll always talk about them. I'll always recommend them to friends in a completely different way. It's like, oh, you're looking for something for, whoever. Have you thought about Uncommon Goods, right? It,
Well,
you know,
and it does double duty, right? One, it makes people feel seen and heard and felt. But two, it also stops those unsubscribes during the holiday season, right? Like it literally does two really good things in as a marketer. Like that's the goal, right? To keep people engaged on your marketing list without having them unsubscribed because they felt a certain way and because we were not really thoughtful about tweaking things. Talk to me a little bit about strength based marketing and how it differs from traditional marketing approaches. And we've talked about the benefits, obviously, right, that come from it. But, maybe an example or two on how you can make that sort of change in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think, we are so data driven, like analytics and everything that we can see in numbers is so, so important. But what if you could get that same amount of sales and the same amount of interactions or more, as is often the case, by just turning your message, like, a bit. So, instead of that, we only have a few left. You only have till midnight. You know, I have so many of those emails in my inbox right now. And what do? Delete, delete, unsubscribe, unsubscribe. But, the actually I think beauty brands actually do this really well, which is like, these are our customer favorites. And I'm like, ooh, why are they your customer favorites? Now I want to see. Maybe I want it too, right? And
Fear
it's
of missing out, that FOMO works, and it's
yeah,
in a positive way.
exactly. Instead of it being like, oh, I have to be like this influencer or, so much pressure to use this product or like this is, let's keep it in the lens of beauty brands. Like, you have to use this mascara or like, I don't know, you'll have like the worst eyes ever or like whatever it is. But just flip that message because it's so easy to put it in a positive light. And at the end of the day, like those same brands, what are you trying to do? You're trying to make your customer feel amazing about themselves. And so, why would you want to create a fear response when you can like make it all positive, right?
Exactly. Like, instead of saying this lipstick will make your lips plumper, you can say this lipstick will make your lips love you. Right? Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to make you feel like my lips are so thin and narrow. I definitely need to plump them. It's more
Yeah.
like, oh, I want my lips to love me, right? Or whatever. I feel like I'm a really positive person. So I tend to go in that direction. And it literally had nothing to do with trauma based informed marketing and things like that. But it's also going into the inclusivity area. We have a lot of like wedding photographers and just talking about, a husband and a wife versus a couple. Like, it's these little tweaks that make you not leave people out or feel like you weren't seen, right? You want to include everyone. Just like the makeup companies are not just saying for women and they're showing men in ads because there are men that love wearing makeup. So I totally, it's more uplifting overall.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And can you provide some tips or strategies for brands who are looking to get started with these approaches? But if they're new to the concept or they're like racking their brain and again, we're like like you had mentioned when we spoke before, right? We're female, we're white, and just by the nature of being born to who we were born to, we've got some really we're just set up a little bit better, sadly, than everyone else. And so, like, how can we, if we don't have the knowledge, where can we go? What can we do to really find help in this area?
Yeah. Well, of course, brands can always come to me.
Absolutely.
I can't help it. Of course, I'm going to say so. But yeah, I mean, I think it is, you know, uh, of course, like we are in like a mental health crisis. Of course, like people are always like, we're sort of trained to look down on ourselves and to see our flaws. And, you know, I think it's just thinking about how would you feel like putting yourself actually in consumer shoes is like, how would you feel if the advertisement that you always got was, your plumping lips example is perfect. Well, why do my lips need plumps? Is that because they're thin? Does everyone think they're thin? Like, am I ugly? Like, am I like, and then we spin out, right?
Doom scrolling on Instagram. Yes.
Yes. Instead, it's like, yes, like, we know you're awesome. Let us help you be even more awesome, right? Yeah. It's
Excellent.
the language tweak.
Yeah. What three things have helped you to grow your business? Tools, advice, really anything. But what
Yeah.
three things do you think sort of got you where you were today?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I learned and biggest part of my trauma recovery. Now, just an aside, I always use the word recovering because the thought that someone will recover, even from a loss, right? It could be 20 years later.
It's
You
still
still
there.
feel 100% there. But one thing that I learned during that time was to really be gentle with myself. And it seems so simple to say, but like, what does that even mean? Like, we're trained to feel that self-care is the same thing as being selfish. And, the reality is when I am gentle with myself, when I take care of myself, it makes me a better entrepreneur. It makes me a better mom. It makes me a better friend because I'm taking time for myself. Now, what does that look like in the context of running a business? Sometimes you're staring at your screen and maybe you're writing copy, maybe you're trying to put together a campaign, maybe, you're trying to figure out how to pitch new clients. You're just so frustrated. Take a minute, spin your chair around, go stare at the wall, go take a walk around the block, go work at the coffee shop for a little. Most importantly, go take a nap. It's my favorite strategy.
Or turn on reality TV because
Oh,
nothing's as bad as their stuff. It makes you
exactly.
feel a little bit better about yourself.
Yeah. I mean, we all need a little love is blind in our lives. Like, let's be
Yeah.
honest.
And
But
then go
yeah,
ahead.
those little things, taking care of ourselves.
And second,
My second thing, well, one is I now have designed a tool that has both helped me and I think is a real game changer for brands. There's nothing like it out in the market. And speaking, it goes into exactly what we were talking about is brands are afraid right now of being canceled. And, not intentionally or anything,
yes.
but so I've created something called the cancel culture checkup. And like, I promise you, if you go there and you get the assessment done, it's going to change everything. So I think that's huge. And then, the last thing, sort of back on the entrepreneur or really just on the business world side is community, right? I think I think we're trained to think we're the only ones. Like there's so much that just gets ingrained in like our social conscious. But, as alone as you may feel like you're the only one struggling with whatever it is you're struggling with. The clever subject line or, putting together like a campaign deck or whatever it is. But I guarantee you, like, there are so many others out there with the exact same struggles. And so I think like finding the communities and whatever that means, maybe it's a group of, fellow women entrepreneurs or, you know, whatever, others that are maybe traditionally underrecognized and coming together in a group. I think finding community is really, really important.
Yeah, being an entrepreneur can be very lonely and we often want to bounce ideas off people and I love my husband, but he has no clue about what I do or how I do it. And he's always positive. I know you can do it. I'm like, that's not what I was wanting right now. I need a sounding board for this, right?
Yeah.
And so, even if it's one or two people that regularly even go online with, I have people all over the world that every once in a while, will get on a Zoom and we'll just chat about our business, and the aha moments and the support and the belief in yourself tends to do better when you're in it with someone else besides yourself. So I agree. Community is irreplaceable. You can do it on your own, but it's very lonely and it takes longer, in my opinion. And it's not as fun as if you have this community around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes even like I like to do virtual co-working with friends, and it doesn't mean, right, it's not like you're not co-working with someone you work with. Sometimes you're just on a Zoom and both working on individual things, but there's something about it that one makes you not feel lonely, two, if you really need to bounce an idea off someone, they're right there. It also keeps you accountable.
Accountable. Yes. It's too easy sometimes to go to the
Yeah,
kitchen and grab a donut, right?
absolutely. Or it's like, it's amazing working from home sometimes because it's like, oh, I can cook dinner or, oh,
Laundry.
things. But then it's also easy to get distracted by all of those things. And so I think that is a really, really good tip. And, we also we just have so much self-doubt that we're plagued with. And it's like, again, it's like in our DNA, and there's a really, really, really smart friend of mine that is in the marketing world who I text regularly. I've always sort of had this mindset of not so much imposter syndrome, but what was it? Maybe 10 years ago, Amy Cuddy from Harvard had that like TED talk that was like, you know, fake it until you become it. Not fake it till you make it, but fake it till you become it. And so I was like telling, my friend about this, and he's just like, gets this look on his face, and he's like, but you don't have to fake it.
You're doing
You know,
it. It's,
yeah. Like
it's
you're
a nice
literally,
reminder to hear.
yeah. Yeah, he's like, there's literally no one that knows as much about this stuff as you do. And I was like, huh. Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, oh, that feels
Like,
amazing, right?
pumped me up a little bit, and he was just being honest.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've never met anyone who does what you do. Speaking of that, before we get to the gift that you are so generously sharing with everyone, tell everyone about the services that you provide in case anyone listening is thinking, I really need Kat's help. I need Kat's, I need that calculator thing. I need whatever, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So on the pure consulting side, as I've shared, I teach brands how to do strength-based and trauma-informed marketing. And it works for companies of all shapes and sizes, although I would say my services are definitely more tailored for B2C brands. And then, from a data and analytics perspective, this tool that we've created, it's called the Cancel Culture Checkup. It's based on three main tenets, which is radical vulnerability, radical empathy, and radical authentic investment. And then there are sort of like a number of things underneath each of those to calculate the score. And what it spits back out is a brand sensitivity score, and, really identifies your risk factors as a brand because, no one wants to be the next brand who gets called out or, is canceled. And it's not intentional. No one's sitting, in a room of like, how can we really offend people today? Right?
everyone to end our business. Yeah. I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
sometimes there are situations where what they believe in is what other people don't believe in. But for the
Yes.
most part, you step in it. Like, you put your foot in your mouth. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And just this year we've had major brands or retailers. One comes to my mind right now who lost something like 80 or 90% of their stock share. 80 to 90%. That's insane. After reversing a decision about something because, there were, people coming after them. And, but by not standing up for what they previously, stood up for really, really hurt their business. And
And you
so,
wonder, did you stand up for it to try to make more money, or did you stand up for it because you believed in it and then you took it away because you like it is, I mean, they're learning to navigate it, I'm sure, at this point.
yeah, absolutely. And it's hard. But I
Yeah,
think, if you're really authentic and not not in that marketing like buzzword sense, but like you really mean it goes into the DNA of your company, no amount of naysayers should ever take you away from that strategy. But,
correct.
come to me like, let's get your brand tested. It's unlimited in terms of how many customers you can send it to. It's really amazing, makes it different than anything else that's out there in terms of customer surveys on the market. There's also built-in audiences that you can use.
Very
So,
cool.
definitely come my way. And, once you have the score, you can always, there's some consulting hours that are included. It can really help you implement it. Yeah.
Very cool. Tell everyone what your freebie is and how it can help them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just put out an ebook. It's called Beyond the Mask, Everything I've Learned About Empathy in the Workplace. And so it's everything that we've been talking about it, but with the internal facing lens. And boy, I tell some stories and then give advice, right? Like I'm really pulling at the research, but I certainly have we all have some interesting workplace stories, but I get to tell those right along with looking at the data. I can't wait for all of you to read it and see it.
Oh, thank you so much for that generous gift, but also for your valuable advice and your time today. I'm so happy that I had you on the podcast. I feel like everyone needs to take a step forward into thinking of these things in their marketing. And this conversation is a really great start. I'm going to make sure to have all of your contact information down below, including your free gift. So all the links will be here. And if any of you out there listening or watching found some ideas and tips that you can actually implement in your business, we would love for you to leave a review. We love to get feedback on the interviews that we do here. And that's a great way to be able to do it. So go out there and do something good for your business, like snagging Kat's gift and then taking action by putting even a little more thought into what you are putting out into the world. Have a great day. Bye.